predicting throughput loss, why averages do not work. Consider a process with a capacity that varies. Sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's 1, and sometimes it's 2 units per hour. And the demand that varies, sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2 units per hour. Assume all those three values for demand and for capacity are equally likely, and also they are independent. If you calculate the average demand, right, averaging 0, 1, 2 equally likely will give you average demand 1, and average capacity is 1. So flow rate is actually, should be actually 1 from what we know, right? But that would, of course, require a buffer, right? Because if you have capacity, let's say 1 unit, but at that hour there is 2 units of demand, then the 1 unit has to wait for the next hour, then hopefully there will be more capacity available for it to serve this unit. What happens when there is no buffer, right? Well, when there's no buffer, consider these cases. These are actually all 9 cases that we might have. Demand is 0 in those 3, and capacity 0, 1, 2. Demand is 1, and capacity 0, 1, 2, and then demand 2 and 0, 1, 2. Right? What happens when there is no buffer? Meaning that, right, if there is demand is 0, of course, any capacity is sufficient. Demand is 1. Unfortunately, capacity 0 will not be able to serve it, and therefore we will lose this unit of demand here. So we're not going to serve because there's no buffer. The unit has to be diverted or abandoned somehow, right? So in fact, what we will have is we can calculate a flow rate for each of those cases, right? And it's always a minimum, right? So a minimum of 1 and 0 will be 0 here, right? And here, the window we have capacity 2 and only have 1 demand, the flow rate will be 1 here, right? And only, right? And even worse is here, when the demand is 2, the capacity is 0, then we lose 2 units of demand and so on. So in fact, the flow rate on average will be 5/9, so it will be a little bit more than 50%, and therefore we are going to lose some demand, right? So in fact, flow rate is not going to be equal to 1, right? If buffer equals 0, flow rate, as we calculated in the table, is 5/9, right? So basically we have either we store supply, if it's possible, right, make to stock, or store demand, customers wait, right? So one of those things has to happen. If there is no way to buffer somehow, then we will have, right, if neither is possible, throughput is lost, right? So this is why averages do not work. We can't say average demand is 1, average capacity is 1, so flow rate should be 1. No, right? We can't just take minimum of those 2. Unfortunately, throughput might be much less than 1 if there is no buffer.